How does this Kentucky team measure up?
Well, I don't think, the one thing that I like about their team is I love their disposition on the floor. I got a lot of respect and admiration, for Gilchrist, just his disposition out there. And I think that, in 2000 for us, in 06 and 07, having a chance there, there's a certain disposition you have to have. And I'm not talking about an arrogance or a cockiness, but there's like a focus level in terms of what really goes into winning at that level. Like there's a mentality there that's just different. I don't know how to necessarily describe it, but I think a lot of their guys, I think Davis and Gilchrist, and I've always been a Miller fan, just the way those guys carry themselves. I'm impressed with that. I don't think that John's first year or second year or third year, I think you could have said the same thing about all three teams. A lot of it comes down to your matchups. A lot of it comes down to how you're playing. They could get into a team maybe that's a bad matchup for them, or a team that can kind of maybe take away some things. But I would think that they have, as good of a chance as anybody. We've played against Syracuse, we've played against Ohio State on the road, so I think we've gotten a pretty good glimpse of some teams that have been ranked in the top 5 for most of the year. I would say that Ohio State is different. They don't have necessarily length. Syracuse to me is a really interesting team because they have every bit as much length as Kentucky, and they have more depth. So they're an interesting team, and obviously they play zone. But I think, when you get to the tournament, it's a one-shot deal, and anything can happen on one game. Anything can happen. But clearly, I think that if they went all the way, it wouldn't be surprising.
You talk about the play of Teague and what you thought of him on both ends of the court and how important he is to what they do.
Yeah, I think he's gotten a lot better from watching film on him. I think he's really improved. I think like anything else, when you're playing a lot of young guys, it takes time for guys to gel and mesh and understand roles and those kind of things. There's times he gets a little too loose out there, but he's got great speed and quickness. He knows where the ball needs to go. I thought that was a matchup tonight that, probably really hurt us when you look at Teague versus Walker. That was something that was a big difference in the game. He had 5 turnovers, Teague, in the game, but I think some of his turnovers were trying to make the right play. But he also had 10 assists, so I thought he played very well.
You touched on it, Billy, about having played all 3 of those teams on the road. Would you care to rank them right now where they stand in your experience?
Well, I think they're all a little bit different. I think in terms of star power, in terms of talent, 1 through 6 or 7, I think Kentucky has the most of anybody. Obviously, I think Ohio State's kind of a 3-headed monster with Sullinger and Buford, and I love the point guard a lot. And I think they're getting play out of Thomas. Now, we played them very early. I thought that they played well against us. Syracuse just has incredible depth, and I don't know necessarily who would be better, because I think that Syracuse will play them all zone, and their zone's a little bit unique. But if you're looking at talent, I think Kentucky's got, when you look at, they have clearly 6 guys that are going to be first-round draft picks on their team. I don't know if Syracuse has 6 first-round draft picks, but they have really good talent, and they have incredible length. But I think that would be a heck of a game, and I think it would be a heck of a game with Ohio State. I know Kentucky beat Ohio State last year.